When I was going through high school, we had a white Toyota, I don't know, Corolla. It was a white Toyota, okay? Little car, lived at the base of the mountains. The mountains are where I wanted to be. As I've told you before, I spent much of my, like 9 to 14-year-old years up in those mountains. And so when I became a teenager and could drive, I always wanted to go to those mountains. It was a constant draw to me. And so this white Toyota, it did a bit of four-wheeling. And I never really told my parents about it. I assumed they figured it out. That white Toyota did quite a bit of driving up on those mountain roads. And the challenge was that it was all dirt road. Once you got to a certain point, it was all dirt road from then on. And here's what happened. That dirt road would start to develop ruts from the cars going on it. And then the rain would wash down those ruts, making the ruts deeper, making them even more trapping. So if you got in the rut, you were stuck in that rut. And the problem was, if you got in that rut when you're driving in a Toyota, there was going to be a moment when you were going to high center because it would dig down around the edge. And so the first thing you had to do once you got in that rut was get out of that rut as soon as possible, which was always a challenge because some of those ruts were literally like straight down. And so you couldn't just like steer out of it because your wheels were trapped in that rut. And unfortunately, that's a lot of what happens to us in our lives, is that we get trapped in our own ruts. And if we're not careful, we're going to high center. And when you high center, you can't go anywhere. You're just out of luck. So let's talk a little bit about ruts. Now, there are good ruts, good habits that those ruts are ones that you want to actually stay in that rut. But there are also, as we know, bad ruts. Now, some of us are in a major like funk kind of rut. And we definitely have to get out of that. Most of us are probably in 4 or 5 ruts. Little things that make things happen. So let me share with you several thoughts I have about ruts. As one of the things I did as I came into this new year was I started looking at what ruts am I in and how do I get out of them. And so here's one of them. So look at what are the triggers that cause you to become rut bound. So I've developed this habit over the last couple of months that's costing me like 20 minutes a day. And it's a stupid habit. And I realized that it all came from a certain trigger event. And so for the last 3 days, I simply didn't allow that trigger event to happen. And the cool thing is, I haven't wasted those 20 minutes a day for the last 3 days because the trigger never happened. So the rut never happens. So the question is, what is triggering for you some of your ruts? Next one. Get outside help. So sometimes one of the ruts that we get into is that we, especially from a business point of view, we get myopic, short-sighted. We're only able to see a certain way. We get stuck in what we're currently doing, what we're currently believing, the way we're currently acting. And sometimes you just need outside help to help you get out of that. So last night, 9 o'clock, I called my old performance coach, who I haven't worked with for 2 years, and I said, hey, it's time for us to work together again, and hired him on the spot to come help me out. And part of that is to help me get out of some of the ruts that I'm in. I know that he has helped me in the past, and so I got outside help to help kick me up to the next level. Here's another one, and this has something to do with the trigger events. Somebody pointed out to me today, they said, Don, you're always wearing like a collared shirt, and you always look like dressed up and things like that. That's because I got in a rut that was partially emotional. And so I was running around in t-shirts and things like that. And I made the decision, encouraged by my wife, yes, to dress up. I simply made the decision that, I could sit here in my t-shirt and be quite happy. I've never been a fashion kind of person. You can certainly tell that. I have no fashion taste whatsoever. But I made the decision that I would put on a shirt with the collar and try, because I tend to feel better about myself. I feel like other people feel better about me when I dress up a bit. And even if no one even sees me, I know that I dressed up, that I fully came to work that day, that I am pulling out all the stops to perform at my utmost best. And so I think, as much as I hate saying this, I actually think the way that we dress has a lot to do with the attitude that we have about where we are in our business and what we're doing. So especially if you're feeling depressed, down, you want to become reclusive and pull within yourself, hey, those are great opportunities to dress up and be all in. By the way, I love to see your comments about what's working for you as we go along here. And when I get to the end of this, we'll read some of them. But anything that's helping you get out of your own ruts, chime in. I'd love to hear them so we can share them and all grow together and all figure this out together. Okay, next one, get physical. We all know that there is a mind shift. There's a state change that happens when we actually start moving our bodies. I haven't tried this the last 3 days. I need to. As I wrote that card, I thought I need to do this for a while. Every day, 3 or 4 times a day, my assistant and I, my assistant worked right here in my office with me, would go out onto the landing, which is just outside the door, and do sit-ups, do 100 sit-ups real fast and 30 or 40 push-ups. We did that 3 or 4 times a day. And it's like every time you just start to feel the energy start to wane, it's a great time to do something like that. Turn on a dance party, whatever work is for you, go for a walk. I oftentimes will say, time to go get the mail. Why? Because it gets me out of the house and I go walk to go get that mail. I get some sun, those kinds of things. All right, here's another one. Eat different. So many of us are in a rut, especially with the pandemic and everything else like that. We've gotten into habits and we put on weight and everything else like that. Maybe it's time to eat different. And even if you are eating well, I think there are anti-rut kinds of things. So there is a restaurant in your town who you have eaten at once or maybe never eaten at that has a different ethnic food or a different style of food that would dearly love to give you takeout, and you can go and discover some brand new food. I suggest that's a good idea right now. In fact, you may want to do something. So at one point, I love the internal menus, the menus that they don't show the customers, the menus that they cook for themselves, that the customers never see. And I have had a couple of times where I had relocated to some place, and so I was eating at a restaurant every single day, where after maybe a week or two, I just said to the wait staff, hey, what do you guys eat in the back room that isn't on this menu? And in one of them, I discovered that they had so it was a Chinese restaurant, and they had a whole Indonesian menu that I didn't even know about because the cooks were all Indonesian. I lived in Indonesia for a year and a half, and it's like, I want to see that menu. And so I would come in there every night and eat Indonesian. Everyone else was eating Chinese, and they were going, I'll have what he's having because it looks so good and it tastes really good too. All right. Here's another one that'll help you get out of the rut. That says, what scares you? I realize it's hard to read. Sorry about that. I didn't write that one very clear. What scares you? What is it that you're afraid of doing? Well, perhaps, as long as it's safe, perhaps you should do it. Maybe jump out of an airplane. So I remember at one point, I literally walked off the edge of a cliff. There happened to be a rope attached and I was rappelling. It was the first time I ever rappelled in my life, but I did that rappelling because I would always been scared of heights. And I decided that walking off the edge of a cliff would be a really good thing for me. And it was a really good thing. Among other things, it was good to just be able to say, hey, I have literally walked off a 50-foot cliff. I took that step at that moment, because when you rappel, you get to a certain point, you're leaning back, you're holding onto the rope, and there is a point where you can go or not go. All you have to do is take a step back up and you're done. Or if you take the step off, you just committed yourself. And I needed to take that step off. And it was good for me. All right. Next, who could you call? Who do you have on your address list that maybe you haven't talked to in years, who has a different perspective, or who will challenge you, who will push you, who will say, yes, who will actually say, what are you doing? What are you going to do differently to achieve what you need to? Who could you call that can give you a different perspective and cause you to change? And then finally, what's the one thing that's keeping you in the rut? That if you just change that one thing, it'll kick you out of that rut and enable you to act and be a different person than you were yesterday. So let's just look at a couple of these comments. Okay, so Michelle says she does journaling, listening to meditations, prayer, talking to God, prayer walks, worship music, talking to friends, napping. My favorite on your list, Michelle, coffee, snack. I do like snacking too, but napping is definitely working for me. By the way, napping can become a rut also. So we need to be careful of that. So everybody else, I love to see what you do to get out of your ruts. Please share that in the comments, and so that we can all grow together. Ruts. They can be good things, or they can be very bad. And the last thing you want to do is get high-centered in a rut. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.